Well, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 25 of the Roots of Success podcast. I'm your host, Nate the Great Peterman, coming at you. And today we have a very, very special guest. I've known him, I'd say, probably for the past couple of years. He's definitely somebody that, I like to, of course, pass ideas with, and somebody that is inspiring many, many people, not just in life, but really big in the music industry, to say the least. My guy, Kale Nelson. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? What's up? How you doing, man? You feeling good?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I'm glad you could be on the show.
That's good, man. I'm happy to be here. I'm definitely feeling honored because this is my first podcast, man. So I'm definitely feeling honored to Nate the Great, man.
Hey, we got episode 25, bro. That's that Reggie Bush number. You feel me?
Look, man. Look, 25 is going to be the lucky number for all year, for the whole year.
Right. It was just your birthday yesterday too, bro. Heck yeah.
Big time, man. I've been waiting. If it sounds funny, I've been waiting my whole life to turn 25. I always thought like this would be a good year, kind of like an energetic year, and I'm feeling kind of that same way. So definitely excited to be alive at 25 and excited to keep living and keep doing what I love.
Heck yeah, man, for sure. I know it's going to be an incredible year for you, for sure. And for some of those that might be wondering, like, man, who's this Kale Nelson? Why don't I know about him yet? Basically, Kale Nelson is an independent artist who just released his newest EP yesterday, Feeling Blessed. He's performed spoken word pieces that have gone viral on social media, and he's a graphic designer who's worked with the likes of Eric Thomas and other notable companies. Now, of course, that's a very brief and short little intro. I know.
Fire intro. It's the best intro I've ever
had. Hey, bro, that's the first of many. You feel me? I know you have quite the story with you and I sort of talking about it yesterday a little bit. So, man, sort of give us a little bit of a rundown, like where you're from and sort of how you grew up and what got you to, of course, creating music and what you're doing today.
Right, man. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, man, born and raised, and that's kind of like that's my pride. That's where all my pride comes from, is from that city. So I was born and raised in Detroit, and for the people who were familiar with the city of Detroit, it's not like your typical go-to. It's not a tourist city. It's not where people go to for vacation. It's kind of a rough and tumble city, if you could put it like that. And that's kind of the environment we grew up in. For me, back then it was normal, like just to be like, my mom raised 7 kids with no dads around. We didn't have any of our fathers in our lives. And a lot of people hear that story and they think it's tragic, but from where I'm come from, it's like, it's almost common. Like nobody in our neighborhood knew their dads. And it was almost like a thing that was just common enough for us to bank on it. Like, and I didn't really realize what kind of environment I lived in until I had the opportunity to get out of that environment. And looking back on it, it was a miracle that I ever made it out. And now I'm at a point in my life where I have to figure out, like, what was my purpose for making it out? Because a lot of people don't get to get blessed with that opportunity to survive, especially at 25 years old, in that environment, and still be blessed to say that they can do what they love, man. So just coming from that environment, it was only a couple of ways really to make it out. Everybody gave us choices, like you could rap, or you could sell drugs, or you could gang bang or whatever, but those are the only choices that you really got. And me, I was always inspired, as crazy as it sounds, I was inspired by rappers coming up, because those were the choices we got. I looked to a lot of rappers coming up as role models, especially not having my father. So I would look up to a lot of rappers and I would see the success that they had, and I wanted it for myself. Like, I really wanted that success. But yeah, I guess that's what started my whole journey on this music thing, really just trying to elevate to that level of success, but at the same time doing something that I love to do.
Wow. No, for sure, man. I mean, I look at some of obviously the most well-known of the artists is, of course, Eminem, being from Detroit. And is Royce the 5'9"? He from Detroit, or?
He's from Detroit too, yeah.
I feel, yeah. Who else is from Detroit? Is there any other big one?
Big Sean, who's from Detroit. Legendary rap producer, rest in peace. Jake, who inspired a lot of hip-hop sounds, one of Kanye's inspirations. Yeah, a lot of rappers, man. The most, like, notably nowadays, we got a rapper called named T Grizzly. He's kind of doing his thing out here in the music industry as well. But yeah, Detroit has a really big music scene. Apart from rap, you know, we got the history as having Motown records in our city, and just that whole Motown sound made Detroit such a musical city. Like, as musical as you think a city like New Orleans is for jazz and for things like that, Detroit is just as iconic for some of our musical sounds, including Motown, even including techno music, which was like pioneered in Detroit.
Wow, man. Yeah, I've been to, matter of fact, I haven't been to Detroit yet. Obviously, I've been to Lansing and everything like that, but
Definitely. Well, that's close. It's close to Detroit.
yeah, yeah, I flew into the Detroit airport, but I've never been downtown or anything like that. But man, I bet, because you probably been to Chicago, right?
Lovely city.
Man, so how's the? Because I know going out in Chicago at night, man.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta watch your back. I went there. I went there in September, bro. I was out at night, and I had to do a double take. I mean, I'm 6'1" going down the streets. You feel me? I mean, I'm dressed pretty nice. I didn't realize it. You feel me? And man, I didn't realize it, man. So how's that different from the Detroit, Chicago?
Detroit and Chicago are similar, man. They sister cities.
Yeah.
Detroit and Chicago are sister cities. So a lot of my relatives, half of my family would be from Chicago, and the other half would be from Detroit. And that's true for a lot of people that I know. But it's very similar, man. It's not that you don't have that fear of going out at night. Like, when you live in that environment, it's kind of like you understand why the environment is, like, why the violence is taking place. So you understand, like, where your place is and all of that. You're like, no, if I mind my business, nobody's going to do anything like that. And that's kind of what you train yourself to think. Like, if I stay out the way, people won't hurt me or anything like that. But again, getting out of that environment and going back to it, like, I felt that same kind of, like, eerie feeling that you talk about, like, when you go outside at night in those cities. I felt that same kind of eerie feeling. And I just think, man, I think it's unfortunate, especially when you have a city like Chicago, as big as it is, and a city like Detroit, as big as it is, to suffer so much poverty, to suffer so much homelessness and so much job loss. But if you pay attention, it's such a resilient city, because none of these people are prideless people. None of these people are sad and woe is me type people. These people, although their living conditions are poor, are still very proud people who are still living their life to the best of their ability, who still want the most out of their life. And that's the resiliency that really keeps the city alive.
Wow. Man, what would you say has been of course, being in the city and everything, what is one thing that you think that you've gained the most in terms of, maybe it's like self-awareness or something like that? What would you say has been one thing that you gained that you really use, I guess you can say, to your advantage today the most out of anything?
That's real. I think the biggest thing that I learned how to do living in that environment was read people, was to understand people. Because that could be a life or death situation in that type of environment, where you have to be able to look at somebody and see if they pose a threat to you or if they mean goodwill or something like that. But having that, being able to read people's reactions and being able to understand people's emotions, I think helped me at this point in my life, because I make music for people. And a lot of that music is for those people specifically, those people who are from where I'm from. And because I can be in a situation where I'm with some of the most, forgive my language, like, forgive my euphemisms, I guess, but gangster people in the world, and they like from like real gutter places. And then I could be in a situation where I'm in a college town and I'm talking to a bunch of college students about some of their studies at the same time, and being able to thrive in both environments, or being forced to have to thrive in both environments, has helped me out the most, because I couldn't have made it out of that environment if I didn't learn how to be in the environment that I wanted to be in those new environments, in those business environments that I wanted to be in. So learning how to talk or be able to communicate with both types of people, or multiple backgrounds of types of people, has helped me the most in everything that I do, especially in art.
No, man, I can totally see that too, because where I'm from, I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania called Chambersburg, and you got a bunch of farm fields around here with cows, and you smell like manure going by. And I literally, every time I drive during the day, I got to pass like a horse. But you said that's where you trying to be?
No, man, I understand the farm town, because in Michigan we got a lot of farms. There's a lot of farms.
Oh.
That smell of that manure, when you talk about the manure, I definitely go to that for sure.
Oh, I feel you, bro. It's crazy, like, just because whenever I go to a bigger city, it's like, man, this is huge, But you look at every single person like you sort of like come across, you know, you just sort of I tend to more I tend to go more into my stealth mode when I get to the city because I'm just like, yo, I ain't trying. I'm just like, you know, watching, you know me. I'm just like me in a restaurant, I'm gonna be like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? You know,
That's
that's
real.
just that's just how I am for real. But no, man, I'm glad you mentioned that because yeah, definitely I do that a lot for real, and seeing how that's helped you, um, of
And I
course, even today.
comfortable being myself, man. Like I always felt like not as an outcast, but I felt like I stood out even in all of those environments. Like not to be
Yeah,
funny, my mom had 7 kids, and out of all 7 of them, like I was the light bright one. I was light skinned, and all my other brothers and sisters are really darker skinned and they're really heavy set. So it made me feel like an outcast even amongst them. And even when I was in environments where I wasn't really like street, like urban tough areas, I was always a little bit more like sensitive, always a little bit more preppy, not as hard as a lot of the dudes that I was hanging around. So I was always felt like an outcast, but it forced me to figure out a way to be comfortable and to let people accept me for who I am. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't force the gangsters to like me. I couldn't force the college students to like me. I couldn't force even any of my closest friends to like me if I was trying to fit in with them. So I just wanted people to like me for who I was and respect me for the choices that I wanted to make for myself. And I think that was the key to everything because I didn't look to a lot of my peers for influence. Like I couldn't get peer pressured into doing something I wanted to do because I wasn't looking to them for influence. It's like I
mm,
had I had a higher influence than a lot of them, the people that were around me.
man, and it's funny because you look at today's world, especially like with the millennials growing up and everything, and with us being a part of that generation.
Yeah.
Um,
We get a lot of flack, man. They hate us. They hate us millennials. You see a new article every day about how millennials are ruining some other aspect of the economy. Like and I just think it's so funny, man. I have these arguments with people all the time about millennials and what we do or what we don't do and stuff like that.
nah, for real, bro. I mean, like you said, I mean, you see it like every single day, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like they look, and then I'm not surprised, you know, because you got a lot of, for example, like within the music industry, and I know we were talking about this yesterday as well. You know, you look at some of the influences that they look up to. It's like, bruh, no wonder. You know, you got people that are going famous. You know, they get off like the Dr. Phil show or something like that. I mean, you got people getting famous on the streets, and it's just it's insane because we live in a very high tech social media friendly world that it's like one video can go viral in a
Yeah.
day, right?
Yeah.
And I know you know that because you of course had a video that went viral.
And that's the exciting part about it, man. I think that's what I think we owe that. We have to thank millennials for that this boom in social media and this boom in opportunity for people really to make opportunity for themselves. Like as social media, people might have their different opinions about it, whether it's good or whether it's bad, but in reality, it's just a tool. And some of the greatest tools, like in the past 10 years, have been created by millennials for the purposes of bettering our like making life easier for the purposes of making communication between people easier. But so many opportunities have come from this last social media boom in the last 5 or 10 to 5 years or 5 to 10 years. That's just making it. I believe it's changing the world. And like you said, for somebody to put a video out and it reach 1 million people in a day, like that's previously unheard of. Like where you can send out a piece of communication and touch millions of people a day. Like that's insane. Like, and that's something that I don't take for granted at all. Even if one person looks at my stuff on social media, I'm like, man, somebody else other than me actually appreciated it.
Right.
Gift, and then let alone 1,000 people or 1 million people, man. But I think with that gift or with great power comes great responsibility. You can spread any kind of message to 1 million people at a time. You know what I'm saying? And when you think about the kind of power that has, you have to be responsible with the messages that you send. And that's what I try to do.
No, straight up. I know you mentioned earlier, you know, being with a family of seven, of course, growing up and everything.
Yeah.
Man, talk about like just growing up in that, man. Obviously, with your mom sort of just raising all of you. I mean, I'm sure that must have been something, and for her to
Yeah.
take that responsibility, you know.
It was one of the most difficult experiences of my life. And there's still some challenges because of the way that I grew up that I'm still getting over to this day, man. But like, to keep it real with you, when I was born, my mom was addicted to crack cocaine, like hardcore, was strung out on it for years by the time she had me, her second youngest out of 7. And it took a toll on our family, man. Like my brothers and sisters got separated in the foster care system by the time, before I could even talk. And we were all separated. None of us could stay together. And then my mom was homeless while she was pregnant with my little brother at the time. And we didn't know what the future of our family looked like. I didn't know if I was going to get adopted to another family, if I would ever see my brothers or sisters ever again. Luckily, by the grace of God, my mom got clean and sober, and she was able to get us all back from the foster care system miraculously. She's been clean and sober for 20 years now. But as anybody will tell you, just because you make good, like, or you correct a mistake, don't mean you don't have to deal with the consequences of that mistake. So we still had to grow up, poor. We were in poverty because my mom couldn't make money for herself for us to eat a lot of times. And growing up, one of the biggest things that we had to come to terms with is that there's certain things in life that you want that you will not be able to have. And as terrible as that sounds, I know a lot of people who don't even understand that, but as terrible as that sounds, it was probably the best thing that happened to me, because it made me focus on the things that I had and focus on the things that I needed, and only things that I needed to get me to where I needed to be. I couldn't have nice shoes. You see what I'm saying? I couldn't have a car, but I needed bus money to get to school. And I knew, like, my mom made sure that I had bus money. If she couldn't give me a car to drive, she made sure that I had bus money to get to school. So now as a man, it's like, I don't need all these chains. I don't need all of these Jordans. I don't wear Jordans. I don't wear, Givenchy or all these designer clothes, because I couldn't have that growing up. And I knew that I didn't need it to be happy. I knew that I didn't need nice clothes to be happy. All I needed to know was that I was making a difference. Somebody was going to have, like, a better situation because of the influence that I had.
Wow. Nah, man, that's a great example too, because you see a lot of people nowadays, it's like they have to have it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having it, but it's materialistic, right? You obviously want something that is going to leave an actual impact. You feel me? I mean, having an article of a Gucci clothing, I mean, yeah, it's cool and all, but if that's, I mean, if you have more, if you have more of an investment within the company of Gucci, but you don't even have any stocks within Gucci, I mean, come on. You feel me? Like, straight up.
Nice things, and I don't blame people for wanting nice things at all.
Yeah.
And we should all want the best things for ourselves. It's just where you place value in things could tell you a lot about your life. And I know a lot of people who value a lot of these material things, and they depend and rely on these material things to make them happy. And they're finding that they're not truly happy depending on these things. And that's what's like, to me, by the time I could afford Jordans, and by the time I could afford, like, watches and stuff like that, I would get them and care so little about them that I would just lose them. Like, I was just like, I've lost gold watches, I've lost Jordans and stuff like that, and not missing, like, even when they were gone, because I care so little about those types of material things. But I started to invest heavily in the things that I really enjoy. Like, you talk about how you buy books on Amazon every day. Like, that's something I invested heavily in. Like, I went and bought a laptop so that I could read as much as possible, like, so that I could like, study the things that I wanted to study, so I can make music on my own terms, and so I can learn how to do graphic design and all that stuff. And it became my obsession. Really, the things that I wanted to do became my obsession, and not the things that I wanted to have, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
the things I wanted to do definitely took way more precedence over the things that I wanted to have.
man. So let me ask you this, Kale. So, growing up and everything, of course, conditions were hard, right? And I'm sure you've seen a lot. So what would you say was that main driving factor that kept pushing you? Because, bro, I mean, I know people that, I mean, they would make any excuse in the book to not actually make something and do something with their lives. But you, on the other hand, you decided to, of course, sort of have, like, that breakthrough that said, yo, I'm going to do something, right? And you're doing it. So what would you say was, like, that motivating factor that you had in your head to basically say, like, yo, we're going to be doing some great things? You feel me?
Yeah. Man, it's probably my mom, man. My mom has been the constant in the whole situation, just because she she instilled so much love into us to be able to fight back and against an addiction, a hardcore addiction, to get her children back, and to be able to instill that level of love of unconditional love into me was probably the biggest thing. And just with a heart like that, the lessons that she taught me were always out of love. And one of the biggest things she taught me was, you could do anything you put your mind to. As corny as that sound, and of course, moms are supposed to tell their kids that you could do anything you put your mind to. To me, I didn't have any reason to believe that she was lying to me. Like she never lied to me about her situation before. She never lied to me about what she's done in the past. And for her to tell me, her kid, that I could do anything that I put my mind to, it was basically like her giving me permission to do what my heart's desires were. And I think that took away a lot of fear from me as a kid, because a lot of kids, or a lot of people's fear, is that they're going to disappoint their parents. And that was never a fear for me. My mom was like, you can't disappoint me. Like I've done some terrible things in my past, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I still want you to love me just like I would love you if you made a lot of mistakes in your life. So there's nothing you could do that disappoints me. But only thing that would disappoint me is if you didn't live your life to the best of your ability, to the best of your to your heart's desires. And I think that's what pushed me the whole time. It's a funny thing about my EP I just released. Listen, I mentioned my mom on every single track. Like literally all 7 of the tracks, at some point in one of the verses, I mentioned my mom and trying to do this thing for her, because she's the reason that I continue to do everything that I do. She inspires that, and she really pushes me to keep chasing my dreams in spite of what life might throw at me.
Wow. You can definitely tell she's your why,
Definitely. I remember when ET put out that "What's Your Why" video, and of course that was like I'm like, yo, that's an easy question for me. Like I have a very strong why, man. And life, even after that, man, life could continue to give you reasons why you should do what you love to do. And another big thing for me is that we were already living in rock bottom conditions, so theoretically there was nowhere else to go but up or out. You know what I'm saying? I have to get out of here, because it's like I can't stay in this situation. I wasn't comfortable at all living where we were living and eating what we were eating. I wasn't comfortable living like that at all. And that's something that was always in the back of my mind, was that I have to make a different normal for myself, because this normal is going to either kill me or is going to try. So I had to make a different normal for myself.
Man, that's deep.
Every day.
Wow. Making a different normal for myself. I like that. Because, I mean, it's easy to get complacent. And, right. It's easy to stay stagnant.
It's so easy to not stay stagnant if you think, man, like people use the term split-second decision. And if that's true, if decisions can be made in a split second, that means you can make 60 decisions in 1 minute. And that decision could be anything in the world. You know what I'm saying? Literally could be whatever you put your mind to. And at any split second, you could decide to not live the way that you live and live a different way. At any split second, you could decide, I'm not going to go to this place I usually go around this time today. I'm going to go somewhere that I don't usually go. And that could be your new schedule for the rest of your time going forward. Literally with a split second decision, you can change your life. So if you have that many seconds in a day or that many decisions in a day, you have like a world, literally a world of possibilities from the beginning of a day to the end of a day to what your day could look like. And that was the inspiration for me. It's not like you wake up one day, like people always say, he didn't just wake up one day and decide it. Like, yes, like like people wake up one day and decide to be who they currently are. Whether they do it consciously or whether they do it through a series of unconscious decisions, they make all these decisions over the course of the day that lead them to exactly where they are. And it's about making different decisions. Like if you want a new normal, make new decisions. Like that's what I wanted more than anything. I had to stop hanging around certain people because I understood their place in my life. I had to stop listening or stop taking certain advice because I knew that I wanted a different level of normal in my life. And doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. So wasn't with it, man.
No, I feel that, bro, for sure. Talking about like your mom and everything like that. Was she really big on you going to school? Like, was that a thing that you had to do, or is that something you wanted to do?
My mom was a whiz kid in high school, and she was really smart. She still is really smart. She's a lot more wise, I think, now than she ever was. But she was really smart, and that actually scared her from going to college. She'll tell you that she didn't think she was ready for college because she just breezed through high school. So instead, she just started working, doing like entrepreneurial stuff, managing restaurants. She's an amazing cook, so she managed a bunch of restaurants, and she was really out here, like she was really doing her thing. But when it came to raising us, by the time my mom got to really raising us, she had fell so far from where she thought she wanted to be in life that when she was teaching us, that when she was imparting a lot of this knowledge onto us, she couldn't encourage us to do it. She never did it because she never went to college. My mom never really pushed college on me as an ultimate decision that she needed to make. She encouraged it. Of course, she wanted me to be educated and she wanted me to be intelligent, but she always encouraged me to do whatever I could do. And when I made the decision to go to college, she was, of course, excited about it. You know what I'm saying? She was excited about it. She knew that was something that that would benefit me, and she supported it 100%. But when I also told her that I wanted to step away from school to pursue my dreams, she supported it 100% the exact same way.
Man, no, that's because there's a lot of parents. Of course, it's like they force their children to go to college. And they don't even always want to go to college, and then it's like that's a waste of money. So I look at you as an example, and of course, with you going to college, man, sort of talk about the process of because I know you've been rapping for quite a while, bro. You told me to sort of talk about the process about like some of the things that you did in college to sort of encourage it even more to actually start to really drop like tapes and everything like that. EP.
Man, college is probably one of the best experiences I've had in my life, just because, degree or not, and I am finishing up my degree currently, but just the experience in and of itself of being around a bunch of peers who aren't, like, it's not, like, if you're hanging around a neighborhood, you will see a bunch of peers, like a bunch of people that look like you, but they're not doing anything that you would want to be doing, that you would be inspired by. So being in college, you're around a higher level of people, of peers, and they inspired the crap out of me. Like, to put it like, you find any better terms to put it in, like, when I got to college, it was just like I went to being like the biggest fish in a little pond to being like the smallest fish in a big ocean of big fish. And I was never scared of that. Like, it was always the most inspiring thing because iron sharpens iron. And for the first time in my life, I had been around people who I felt like were geniuses in their own right, and they were just like me, and they were just as passionate about their dreams as I was passionate about mine, and they were just as as hungry for the things that they wanted in life as I was. And I thought that was probably the best thing I could have seen at that point. Like, Skip experience, like the best thing I could have even visualized at that point. Because at the moment I saw that, made it possible. Like, the moment I saw one of my friends who's my age tell me that he's going to be a doctor, and these are the steps he's already taken to get his PhD, and by the time he graduates, he's going to have his 2 degrees and stuff like that. He's going to be working for this hospital. Like, that was amazing to even hear come out of somebody's mouth, because you don't hear that coming from. It's like, yo, man, I hope I get this job at Foot Locker. Man, I heard they pay $9.25, and that's a raise from my other job. You know what I'm saying? And it's like,
right.
Talk about being a doctor. I just got off the phone with him. He's like, yeah, man, I just got my first check in for my first regular job as being a resident at a hospital. And I'm like, yo. And I remember getting to college and thinking that place was going to be the jumping pad for the rest of my life, for anything that I wanted to do in life. Whether I wanted to start a business, I had all the tools in my immediate vicinity to make that happen. Whether I wanted to launch a brand, I had all the tools in my immediate vicinity to make that happen. For the first time in my life, and none of the fear of not making it happen, because we were all just young, trying to, make our mistakes and get them out the way so that we can get to our success. and none of the fear of putting out and failing. I think that was the best thing about college, is that everybody's just experimenting. Everybody's really just trying their hand at life with a lot of passion until they figure it out. And that environment, I encourage everybody to at least spend a year in college or spend a year away at a university, or at least in some type of environment where the people around them are just as passionate about the things they want in life as they are. Because I think that's people's biggest problem, is that they have a lot of passion, they have a lot of dreams, but they're not around passionate people with dreams. They're around dream suckers. They're around dream killers. They're around, you know what I'm saying, not passionate people, unmotivated people. And regardless of all the hope that they might have, if they continue to stay in that environment, they'll end up just like the people that they hang around.
No, that's so true, bro. Like literally, I mean, especially with where I'm from, I mean that's so common, and that's one of the reasons, you know, why a lot of people, they don't want to go anywhere, they don't want to like do anything, you know, because they're so used to that environment where it's like that molds them, and you know, they don't want to get uncomfortable with that to grow. And obviously, you and I both know, I mean, we're living testimony to that, of course, like with our environment and transitioning that. So like,
What's crazy is that when I think about it, like when you talk about Detroit versus Lansing,
yeah,
Lansing probably, like a lot of the people that I know in Lansing are probably worse off than the people that I know in Detroit. Because Detroit forces you to make a decision about your life. You know what I'm saying? Whether you want the good or you want the bad. Like, it doesn't really put you anywhere in the middle. Like, you're either really extremely poor, or you're really, you know what I'm saying, extremely wealthy enough to live and protect yourself in the city, or at least comfortable enough to live and protect yourself in the city. So it forces you to choose a specific kind of lifestyle to get that outcome. In Lansing, though, because it's largely middle class, you could just be average and live comfortable in Lansing. You know what I'm saying? And never have anything of your own. Just kind of like just coast your way at the surface level living. And I think that's a lot more dangerous because people don't have anywhere to go in Lansing. It's a small city. They don't really have anywhere to be. They don't have any big dreams or anything like that. It's just people swinging for the lowest hanging fruit because it's there and it's there for the taking. And I'm glad I didn't grow up in that environment versus a more hardcore environment, because I could have been just like some of my friends that I went to high school with in Lansing, who are still in that same city, who are dying and screaming or trying to say that they want to get out or that they want better for themselves, but they cannot muster the courage to actually get out of their normal, like at all. I have my boy who I went to high school with, one of my best friends, man, and I went away to college and he stayed in Lansing, and by the time I got back, he had like 3 kids with 3 different women, and like, and people always ask me like, yo, if I would have stayed, like what my situation would have been. And it could have been very similar to his situation or a little bit worse or different, but just being in a different environment was the world of difference, was the one world of difference. Getting on that plane and going to Huntsville, Alabama to college was the biggest difference that took place in my life to put me in the position where I'm here today. And that was probably 6 years ago. And just when I was seeing different things every day, like being away, I saw hustle every single day. I saw grind every day. I saw my biomed freshman peers, like who were 17, going to 4-hour labs, doing like inorganic chemistry, stuff that I couldn't even think about in my dreams of doing. They're dissecting all sorts of stuff, human cadavers and stuff, and they're my age, and they have to remember all this material, and they passing these classes with A's, like blowing it out the water. I'm like, yo, like, and then you still see how down to earth and how normal they are. They just like they're just like you. So it's like, yo, they're not a super freak, like they're not a super genius, or they're not like a savant. Like they just work, like they just had passion about it, and that was the biggest difference in my whole life.
man, I know, I know going from Michigan to Alabama, that's a whole like culture shock.
Culture shock, but I appreciated it more than anything, just to go to the South from a big city in the North, is that, you know, they do stuff so much slower here in the South. And even when I got here, I talked too fast. I definitely walked too fast. And they're just like, oh, slow down, you know what I'm saying? But they have a lot more care. They take a lot more care with the things that they do. And I think they have a lot more follow through. Like they're really big on following up with people, and when they reach out to people, they want to like they want to stay in contact with people and things like that. That's not as common in the North. So I did appreciate that about it. But it's funny because my school, although it's like in the South, it's probably it's probably a super duper multicultural school. Like it's like we represented by at least I believe like 60, 70 countries in the school. And they're mostly from either the West Indian islands, like Caribbean islands, like Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago or the Cayman Islands, or African countries, even Haiti or some other countries. And Americans are the minority on that campus. So it was like a double culture, super intercultural shock. Because every time I came across somebody from another island, they would come with a different set of cultures. And my fiance, who I met at school, her parents are from Guyana, which is a country in South America. And when I go and I hang out with her family, it's like a completely different set of rules than the rules that I grew up with. And it just made me realize how big the world is and how many different people are out there with so much different knowledge. Like it's inspiring, man. Like you cannot help but be inspired by that.
I like the saying, everybody you come in contact knows something you don't. Like that's so deep. And of course, like with you traveling and being in school, like around all those different cultures, you meet different walks of people, and same with myself, like, and you can learn something from every single one of them. And I bet the traditions that, they do, I bet you that's something.
Traditions are it's so beautiful to watch, man. Cause I'm not one of those people who were like, the way that I was raised was the way that people should be raised and the way my mind, like I'm American. So like the customs that I brought up under were borrowed from a bunch of other cultures. But a lot of these cultures have their own like unique culture that's unique to where they're from. And I just thought it's so beautiful. They have their own music. I went to a Guyanese funeral not too recently, and it was so beautiful, like the way that they celebrated like someone's passing versus how I'm used to it. And it was just such a beautiful thing to see that, like to the point where I'm like, this is the way I want it to be done when I have to,
Right, yeah.
Like, I loved it that much, man. And I wouldn't be able to have those type of experiences if I just wasn't in a different environment, man. And I just can't stress the importance of like seeing your environment for what it is. Like you have to look at your environment and say, these are the things in the environment that's helping me, and these are the things in the environment that's hindering me, that's causing me from moving forward. And even making a subtle change to your environment makes it a different environment. Even if it's just removing one piece of the equation can make it a different environment. Just like if you remove one animal from the food chain, it changes the ecosystem. Like that's exactly how it is in your life. If you can remove one habit out of your day or out of your week, it can change the whole ecosystem of your life to be a completely different atmosphere around everything, for you to have a different outlook at work, for you, like anything, man. And that's even a lesson I'm still learning now, because as you grow and as you enter in different environments, like your weaknesses can present themselves in different ways when you have different factors weighing.
Man, that's deep. Yeah. So, because you identify, like you said, it's all in the environment. You identify them, an environment like, in a farm country compared to like, an inner city environment or a college environment.
But even I think even some mental environments, like people behave different when they're under a lot of stress, or when they're under a lot of what's the word I want to use? Like when they're under a lot of like when they're under a lot of pressure, and people, when they feel like they're back against the wall, they behave differently than when they feel like they can take it easy. And even like people behave in a comfortable environment. If their environment is too comfortable, that could be a hindrance on them as well. And like just like being under pressure could cause them to move out of desperation or something like that. So you have to be able to be cognizant of, self-aware enough to realize, okay, I'm moving because I feel like I'm under too much pressure. Or if I make this decision, I'll put myself under too much pressure. And knowing that I don't behave well under pressure, I shouldn't make that decision. Find a decision that puts a lot less pressure on me. Or say, okay, I need this pressure to kind of push me in the direction that I want to go. So I'm going to make this decision despite the pressure. So being like, you have to be super self-aware. I think E.T. said it best, like in the chapter of one of his Greatness is Upon You books. He said, people's biggest weakness is their inability to self-assess. Like people there's a vast group of people on the planet who can't look at themselves and say, this is where I'm slacking. This is where I'm doing good. This is where I need improvement. This is where I could do some work. You know what I'm saying? And as long as you have that ability to look at yourself and say, this is where I can do work, then you're going to be like, you're going to guide yourself the right way. But that's as simple as it sounds, it's rare, Nate. Like, it's super duper rare that people could even look at themselves. Like, I know a lot of friends, I have a lot of peers who cannot look at themselves and say, yo, or even, I'll take it from an artistic perspective. I have a lot of artists who are peers who put out their stuff and they can't tell whether or not it's whack or if it's sweet. Like, they just think everything they put out is sweet. And if somebody tells them that it's not, they hate it or whatever. Like, they can't even take criticism because they believe, like, they can't make faults. And I've seen so many people fail like that. Like, I've seen so many people fail like that. Or not even fail, just cease to move forward, cease to make the necessary improvements to move forward.
Yeah, they get offended too easily.
Oh,
you know, I mean, you look at the people that go on American Idol, and whenever some of these people, you know, criticize them or, oh man, it's like, man, you ain't even good. Did you said you sung? Yeah. Oh, who'd you sing it for? Yeah, my mom. Oh, I got you, man. You gotta go back. You gotta do it. You feel me?
Luther Vandross, man. They said I sound like Luther Vandross, and then you get up there, and then the family is there just hugging them afterwards, like, oh, they just like none of that, man. Like, none of that. And even you, I know you have employees like in your company, of course. Like, you have to. It works better when you have employees who could take the criticism and say, okay, I do need the adjustments, or you know what I'm saying, versus an employee who's like, yo, not understanding where they can improve. And I think that's a lot more difficult to work with because, you know, we all need improvement. We all could use some practice. We all could use some tightening of the screws. Every single day, I'm trying to get better at what I do. And I think it's insane to live in a world where you don't think you can get better. Like, even on the little stuff, like if you don't think you can get better.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I see people like that, and of course, I've learned a lot, you know, over the past couple to few years, you know, being in business, just, you know, seeing some people that, you know, you think they would turn out well, but they just couldn't take the constructive criticism, especially whenever hey, is it all right if I give you some constructive? Oh yeah, okay, cool. And you know, you do it 5 minutes later, man, you good? Yeah, I'm about to throw some hands. You feel me? I'm like, man, like, yo, chill, bro. You said you were good a minute ago. I mean, shoot.
Yeah, and even I think even being critical of yourself could help you just in life in general. Like, always being aware of the decisions that you make, and like being a critical thinker is so imperative. I think that's probably the biggest lesson I tried to learn over the past year was thinking about my thinking. Like, somebody told me, like, you have to think about, like, that's what it means to be a critical thinker. Like, analyze even your thoughts themselves to the point where you could understand why you continue in the same patterns that you continue in, why you make habits out of some of the habits that you have. And once you start thinking about your thinking, you can really understand really the basic way that humans fall into our habits, like the different things that we crave and how to fight off against the different things that we force ourselves to do every day, man. And I don't know, man, I kind of feel conflicted because you want people to be a lot more critical in life, but at the same time there's people like us who need people to teach. Like, we need people to be in a position where they would teach, you know what I'm saying? And I think there's a lot of people who can't be critical because they always have to be the student. Like, they always need somebody to tell them what to do. They always need somebody to give them the advice. And I always feel like, are they wrong for doing that? Are they wrong for seeking out so much advice and seeking out all these gurus, all these self-help people? Like, are they wrong for seeking out all these people over and over again to make changes in their life? Or is it necessary, like, to constantly need to be taught?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's good to a point until you start like just doing it nonstop. Like, because I mean, you can ask maybe like a couple, but when you start getting over a few, I'd be like, man, like, stick with one and just learn. You know, quit going to X, Y, and Z. Like, just stick with X. See how that goes. And of course, I'm a firm believer, like, having a mentor and everything. You can't and you shouldn't outshine the master.
Yeah.
But that's a law. You feel me? I'm reading the 48 Laws of Power now, and that's one of the biggest things that you like that book. Yeah, that thing's deep, bro. And it says that like never outshine basically like the master, the guru. And it's like there's a reason behind that. So I'm a firm believer, man. If you have, and I know people have, of course, several mentors in different like niches, but if you go from mentor to mentor and in that same exact niche, it's like, bro, I think you got to evaluate yourself,
Definitely. I think a part of it was, for me, I said this line in my album. It was like, last year I stopped taking advice because nobody really knows how to make it in life. And like, that was a real thing for me because I was following people's advice, but wasn't getting the results that I wanted. And at the same time, I was unhappy because I was like, if I'm gonna to live and die by somebody's advice, I want it to be to my own understanding. And it was okay for me to ask for advice before, but I've gotten all the knowledge that I've needed to get. I've gotten all the concepts. I've soaked up all the information that I needed to soak up. And if I continue to do nothing with this information and pretend like I need more information before I act, then I'll never act on the information that I have. I'll never use the things that I already have to put in work towards the things that I wanted to get in work for. And that advice, that constant needing of affirmation from my mentors, and constant need for approval or a thumbs up or a sticker from my mentors, kept me from moving in the directions that were natural for me to move in. I didn't need their opinions. I'm asking people who don't rap about rap. Like, yo, you think this song is nice, or you think that? And then when they give me their opinion, I feel some type of way. And like you said, like, I'm in my feelings about it. And the reason I stopped asking for all of that advice is because I was in a position where now I was the only expert in the room. And that expert, the thing I was an expert on, was my life. Like, I was the only expert on my life. I was the only one who had lived through all the experiences that I lived through. So I was the only person who could give me the total, complete information towards where I need to go next. Like, everybody else could tell me from the outside looking in, like, based on the decisions I see you making, this is what you need to do next. And that opinion changed from person to person. But I stopped taking that advice because it was like, okay, act. Like you said, it's at a point where you have to just do. Like, yo, you have to start using the information that you already have. Take the last person's advice you got some advice from and use that before you get anybody's advice. Like,
right, yeah.
What the last person who gave you some advice told you to do, then you shouldn't ask for no more advice at all. Like, at all. And a lot of times we don't even do the people. We really come to people for advice because we want them to affirm what we already want to be true in our hearts. And instead of just affirming it in our hearts, we look for other people to affirm it before we act on it. Instead of saying, yo, it's in my heart already. Like, I have to do it because it's in my heart already. And that's the energy I started to come with. Like, yo, once I get that feeling in my heart, whether it's to write a song, whether it's to put out a song or put out a tape, whatever, whenever I get that feeling right here in my chest that something needs to do, I act on it immediately. Like, yo, go for that. And I've never been steered wrong when I acted on that feeling. Anytime I've ever doubted or hesitated on that feeling, I stumbled in some type of instance, or I felt upset or disappointed in myself because I didn't get that opportunity. But every time I acted when I got that feeling in my chest, I experienced amazing results, because that's, to me, what moving in my purpose was. That's what my purpose was. Like, God doesn't give you that feeling in the pit of your stomach or in the back of your mind. He don't give you that just to have it. Like, that's survival instinct. That's like muscle memory. Like, that's almost like, that's your spirit telling you, this is what we crave. This is what we want out of life. This thing right here. And a lot of times you don't act on that feeling because maybe you're scared or something like that, or maybe you've never done it before. But every time I've chased that feeling, I've gotten the results that I wanted to get.
No, it's just like you said,
or whatever.
Yeah, just like you said, it's instinctive. It's like that's your first nature, and it's funny. Like, they say if you go with like your second instinct, or if you're having a hard time with it, it's like, man, act with what you first had, like, in the heart, or they call that like the gut feeling and everything. Heck yeah, not yeah.
Like, once your habits a lot of times are just a combination of the things that scare you the least in your life. Like you just repeat the things that give you the most comfort, that don't scare you, that you can expect and to depend on to not give you any surprises. Like that's a lot of times your habits. But a lot of times the things that you need or want out of life are on the other side of the things that you don't do every day. That's the reason your life looks the way it looks, is that you do this, like this is the things that you do every day. And we're so scared to change that, like to fix that thing, like to say, I'm not going to do this thing anymore, to say, I'm going to do something different today. Because maybe like we don't know how it's going to play out. Like before I put out my album, I had no idea anybody would listen to it. Like as crazy as it seems, like I have no idea when I put out a piece of art, whether anybody's going to look at it or whether I put out anybody's going to click on it. And that fear stopped me from releasing music for 5 years. It paralyzed me. Like, yo, what if I put it out and nobody listens? Or what if I put it out and people hate it? Or, you know, and I stopped myself right there at the door. And literally the minute I put it out the other day, the feedback was immense. Like I had no idea people would show love the way. And maybe my bar was too low. Maybe my expectations were low. But even then, I exceeded my own expectations in spite of my fear. And I think that's going to be true for everything in my life from this point forward. It's like, yo, you're going to have that fear, man. You're going to have that fear of releasing that project. You're going to have a fear of maybe even quitting a job, or even like, you know what I'm saying, going to school or dropping out of school. You might have that fear, but you got that feeling in your chest. In spite of that fear, you need to act on the feeling instead of the fear. Like, especially if that feeling persists through the fear, you need to use that feeling to get you through the fear. Like, ride that feeling to get you through the fear, and you be right exactly where you want to be.
Man. Yeah, this is a great knowledge, bro, for real. Like, yeah.
I mean, it's that movie, After Earth, that movie with Will Smith and Jaden Smith.
Oh yeah.
He was so deep when he was talking about how fear isn't real, how it was like it was made up, it was a figment of his imagination. I thought that was so deep, and it spoke to me a long time ago when I watched that movie. And I'm like, man, I deal with a lot of anxiety, and that anxiety led to a depression at one point in my life, and it was really gripping me deep at one point, like going through this anxiety to the point where, like, especially about going to school and being in college, I would have panic attacks before I go to class, like on my way to class before I could even knock on the door. Say I was like 5 minutes late, I'd be thinking like, oh man, they're all gonna be staring at me when I walk into the classroom, and I didn't bring my book, or I don't have a pencil. I'm going to have to ask somebody for a pencil when I get in there. I would have like a panic attack thinking all these thoughts to myself, and then just not go to class. And then my grades started to drop so terrible, and all that fear of just being in the classroom, of just taking the embarrassment of walking in late, all that fear hindered me from getting my degree when I was supposed to get it. And I had to get to a point in my life where I was like, I can't allow something imaginary, something in my head, something that's not real. These perceived thoughts of a perceived reaction from people are keeping me from actually getting the things that I want, forgetting the physical things that I want. And I just got tired of it, man. Like, I couldn't do it to myself anymore. Like, I couldn't do it to myself.
Wow. No, man, I feel like a lot of people deal with that too. Like, they feel as if, and like you said, I mean, you know, it's like panic attacks and anxiety, but they feel as if everybody's out to sort of like get them too. You know, like everybody's like against them in a way. And it sort of like holds them back from doing a lot of things. And I feel like that's one of the biggest causes to like why people don't go after their dreams too, is because they think everybody's going to judge them and they want approval, but they don't need no approval. You just need your approval.
Yeah, man. And it's people's identities are tied to the of other people, and I think that in and of itself is such a big problem in our society, is that people on social media, they want to be perceived a certain way instead of being a certain way. Like, people want the outward appearance instead of the inner resemblance, and that's like, you're not gonna get it that way. Like, you have to, things work inside out. Like, you have to do it inside first to get the outward experience. Like, you can't pretend to be, you know, we got a pretend politician in office now. Like, I'm not a politician, but you can't, like, eventually if you pretend to be something, eventually the facade is going to come off and people are going to see what you really are. So it's better to start with what you really are first. Say, this is what I really am, and this is who I really need to be to get the things that I want. You know what I'm saying? me, it was a start. Like, yo, I'm a whack rapper, but I want to be a good rapper. Like, I want to be a very dope rapper. And I had to start with, yo, currently at this point, I'm not successful. And these are the things that I need to do to be successful. And that's it. But like I said, people don't have that ability to self-assess. And then people would always put their self-interest first and say, oh, instead of me admitting that I'm bad, I'm going to say that people are picking on me. I'm going to say that people are criticizing me too harshly. Or I'm going to say people don't understand the full story of how I feel. I'm going to say people don't get me, or people don't really understand what like. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
you know what you want out of life. And if you're not getting those things, you're the only person that you could ask those questions to about it.
Wow. Nah, man.
Like, but
Yeah,
I've been blessed, man. I've been blessed to hang around a lot of gurus in my life who kind of imputed a lot of this knowledge onto me, especially, you know, Eric Thomas and CJ, my brother, actually is probably the biggest influence on my life. He's the president of Eric Thomas and Associates, the hugely successful brand and company. And man, that whole family over there has taught me everything that I know from the time I was a kid to the time just to today, and just listening to, you know, E speak and listen to CJ speak. Those people really live and they embody the things that they say that they're about. And even if you can't see it in yourself to get the evidence, you can see it in them to know that they're telling the truth. Like, yo, this stuff works because it clearly works for them. Like, and it's amazing to see, man. And it's just, I'm just blessed to even know those people, and to even get them to put me in a position where they could get me out of the environment I was, to pour that knowledge into me, man. So I'm just trying to give back to people as much as I can, because that saved my life. Just having a little bit of knowledge they gave me and the little bit of experience that they gave me changed my life, man, and started me on a path that I'm still on to this day. So that's all I'm trying to do with my life, man, with my whole journey, is to put people on a path, even if it's just a spark of inspiration, even if it's just a spark of creativity, to put them on a path to where they could want something better or want something different in their life than they currently have.
Wow. Nah, straight up, bro. Definitely, man. Yeah, where can the audience, where can the viewers and listeners grab your the EP, and then of course where can they follow you on social?
Yes, sir. You can grab the EP at soundcloud.com. Just type in Feeling Blessed EP in the search bar. It'll probably be the first thing that pops up. You can follow my social media at Kale, Kale Nelson _ Kale Nelson _ I believe that's true for all my social media: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can just follow me at facebook.com/ It's Your Boy Kale. That's ITZ. It's Your Boy Kale. And I'm gonna be having a lot more content coming out, man. Excuse me if I'm grammatically incorrect I'm from the hood, so I talk a little weird sometimes. But yeah, I'll be having a lot more content coming out, a lot more soon. Because, man, I feel blessed. I don't want to push the brand too much, but I feel blessed just to even be alive at 25, man. I want to use every second that I'm awake, every breath in my body, and every fiber of my being to inspire people, so that they can feel as blessed as I feel. Because in reality, we all blessed. We all blessed to see another day. We all blessed to have a life, to have a chance to make a decision to make our lives better every single day. So I'm just trying to spread that inspiration and just hope to make people, or to get people to feel as blessed as I feel, man.
No, absolutely, man. I'll put the links and everything in like the description below, so everybody can click on and everything. So, man, Kale, yeah, for sure, bro. I got you, man. So every single episode, I sort of have the guest ended on like a great note, but I like to call like an execution note. Obviously, you dropped immense value, and man, we could keep going for real. I mean, I might have to have you on for part 2, bro, because we definitely can chop it up for days. You feel me? But man, what's that one note, and we'll end it on this, that you, whether you already talked about it or maybe it's something that you would all like to address, that you would like for that person to actually go out and execute on. So it could be like a success principle, It could be a key, it could be a nugget, it could be a recommendation, maybe it's a process, right? What's that one thing that you would recommend somebody to go out and do and execute on?
Man, I think my biggest piece of inspiration, and I'll say, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And I know a lot of people in life, I get a lot of questions like, yo, man, how do you find a gift, or how do you find your passion? And then people are like, yo, I look up to you because you look like you have your idea of what you want to do in life, man, and I still don't know what I want to do. And literally the only answer I ever have to that question of how to find your passion, how to find your purpose, is to put yourself out there. Try everything that your heart could think of trying. Like if you see something you think is cool, try to do it yourself. Like if you see somebody who's a master yo-yoer and you're like, yo, I used to have a yo-yo when I was a kid. I always wanted to yo-yo like that. So grab you a yo-yo, go to youtube.com, look up how to yo-yo videos and master it. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And I guess part 2 to that advice is don't be afraid to mess it up also. Like it's going to be terrible the first time you do it. It's probably going to be funny if you look at it the right way, like how bad it is. But honestly, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Do and try as many things as you could possibly want to try, because that's the only way you'll be able to know what your purpose is. Like your purpose could be just outside of the things that you've experienced. And you don't know what your purpose is because you haven't experienced that yet. You know what I'm saying? So when you get the experience, you get to say, okay, I tried that, I didn't like it. Or I tried that and I loved it. And then you have more of a vast knowledge of what your true purpose is. Man. But don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Because in reality, that question is a lot of people say, I don't know my purpose. And to me, I think a lot of times they say they mean to say, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And that's not the same thing as not knowing your purpose. Like you can make your life's purpose your life's purpose. To me, I decided that the purpose for my life would be to inspire people through my testimony. And to me, there was 1,000 different ways to do that, through my music, through my art, through my poetry, through my graphic design or whatever. And to me, that's what my purpose was. And when people ask me what I want to do with my life, at any moment, it could be one of those things. Right now, I'm doing exactly what I want to do with my life, which is the music. Tomorrow, I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to go make like vegetarian lunch for a bunch of elementary schoolers. And that's going to also be what I want to do with my life. You know what I'm saying? And it's also all a part of my purpose in the same sense. But everything that I put my hand to and try it, every time I put myself out there to try something new, it puts me in a position where I could do something different. Like it puts me in an experience where I could have a different experience. And don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to mess it up. Like, don't be afraid to go up on stage and be nervous and handshake and da-da-da. Don't be afraid to ask somebody out that you really like even. Don't be afraid to go to that event that you've been not trying to go to because, like, you don't want to meet up with those people. Like, but whatever it is that you want to do, like, don't be afraid, because that's really the only way you're going to find any kind of happiness. Is really taking away that fear and saying, I'm going for it. I'm diving head in, and I'm taking everything that comes with it.
No, straight up, bro. That's great knowledge. Put yourself out there. Kale Nelson. Yeah, man. I appreciate you, brother, for real. Definitely means a lot. Glad you could share your story and the knowledge on the show. And yeah, man, I really appreciate you being on, bro.
Definitely, man. And I would look, anytime you need me to come on here, man, you know how to get in touch with me. So I definitely would love to come back on. I enjoyed the show, so I appreciate it, man.
Hey, I got you, man. We'll talk soon, all right?
Yes, sir. Will do.